Masayoshi Son is the billionaire CEO of SoftBank, a technology investment firm with such a unique way of operating that it has reshaped business not only in Japan but across the world. Its portfolio includes 80 companies, including the likes of Uber, NVIDIA, and Boston Dynamics. Anytime SoftBank appears on a startup's board of investors, you know it's going to be big one day, whether it really deserves it or not. Today, Masayoshi Son is unfortunately best known for the humiliating downfall of WeWork, something that his critics say is proof that Masayoshi Son's talent for spotting innovation is obsolete. But the man behind one of the most influential investment funds in the world worked his way up from the most humble of origins. His family was dirt poor in a country that didn't even recognize him as a citizen until he was a massively successful businessman. You don't go from a pig farmer living on the fringes of the law to one of the world's most influential billionaires without at least a few tricks that are worth learning something from. He once raised $45 billion worth of capital in a single meeting. But is that skill so impressive when you blow it on risky investments like pizza-making robots and experimental kindergartens? Chapter 1. Seeds of Ambition. Born 11th of August, 1957, Masayoshi Son was originally called Masayoshi Yasumoto to fit with Japanese society. It wasn't his family's choice though. The Japanese government forced Koreans to adopt different names. He's a third-generation Zainichi Korean, which means that his bloodline immigrated from Japanese-ruled Korea before the end of World War II. Zainichi Koreans are the second-largest minority population in Japan, right after Chinese immigrants. Yet he wouldn't become a naturalized Japanese citizen until 1990. Discrimination and bigotry helped him grow, he says, because it proves that hard work will always get you noticed, even if you have to work harder than others. This means the life of Masayoshi Yasumoto was always about being on the edge of culture. In fact, he lived on the edge. Literally. His dad illegally built a house on land owned by Japan National Railways. It was here on the island of Kyushu that Masayoshi and his 3 other siblings were raised along with his father's pigs and chickens. Even though Masayoshi had technology in his backyard and nature in his living room, it was his father's business that became the real backdrop of his childhood. He saw how his father's black market sake business earned enough money to bring them out of poverty. In fact, his dad's rice alcohol hustle was enough to make them the first family in the neighborhood to own a car. Young Masayoshi had seen the growth of the railroad, the growth of farm animals, and now the growth of their standard of living. Next, they uprooted to a better area so the boys could attend a better school. Here, he focused on honing his business skills, especially since he read a best-selling book by Japan's head of McDonald's. Masayoshi was only 16, yet was captivated by the wisdom inside. He was desperate to meet the genius author, so he did everything he could to meet him. He must have called the guy's assistant 100 times. All he got was a firm no and a lengthy telephone bill. So he changed plans. The young buck flew into Tokyo to prove that he was serious about meeting him. Finally, he got 15 whole minutes with the busy businessman, which ended up being some of the most defining moments in Masayoshi Son's entire career. He asked the McDonald's master what business a young man like him should get into. The answer: don't look to the past. Look to the future industries. Look for the place where there is growth. Go into computer technology. So, he did. And so, it's time to learn how history works as we track the rise and fall of the life story of Masayoshi Son. This week's video was sponsored by Blinkist. Blinkist is an app that provides you with the most important summaries of over 6,500 books across various categories, catering to a diverse range of interests, allowing readers to grasp the key ideas in just 15 minutes. Whenever someone recommends an important book to me, I feel guilty, because I know they spend more time reading than I do. It's not because I don't like reading, it's because I want to make sure I'm spending my time efficiently. With Blinkist, I find many titles of my interest and learn about them when I have time. If any of them turn out to be real interesting, then I read the whole book. I recently listened to an inspiring book on Blinkist called Flags of Our Fathers, which tells the story of the 6 men who raised the American flag at the Battle of Iwo Jima. I've decided to read the whole book now, and it's a perfect read this Memorial Day. Since using Blinkist, I feel like I'm spending my time much more efficiently, because I'm able to get the key ideas before I sit down and read a whole book. Blinkist's tailored content is perfect for history lovers, providing you a summary of a book before you dive right into it. Take advantage of the special Memorial Day promotion and start your 7-day free trial and get 70% off Blinkist annual premium by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on the screen. Chapter 2. Strong Roots and Computer Wires. The meeting with the head of Japan's McDonald's had galvanized Masayoshi. He returned home a changed man and immediately threw himself at getting a great education. In class, he was the top student, passing every test with flying colors. But he couldn't stop there. In fact, he couldn't stay there. They saw their son could only grow as big as his environment allowed, so they moved to the US for more opportunities. Completing high school took him just 3 weeks. After that, he attended the University of California, Berkeley to study computer science and economics. But it was a magazine article that he read when he was 19 years old that helped narrow the young genius's focus. The article was about a microchip. Rudimentary by our modern standards, sure. But for Masayoshi Son, the possibilities of computer power confirmed he was on the right path. Personal computers were coming. If tech was going to revolutionize consumer life and business structure, then he was going to make sure he was a pioneer. He entered the tech space before he'd even graduated. In the same way that Warren Buffett rented pinball machines to local barbers, Masayoshi Son imported arcade machines from Japan to stick in dormitories and diners. But he didn't stop there. While still studying, he and a few other buddies developed a sound translation device. Not only could it translate between Japanese and English, it could convert sentences into German. He graduated in 1980, but 1 year later, he sold the device to electronics giant Sharp Corporation for around $1 million. That's not a bad payday for a fresh-faced 20-year-old. Most people in a situation might have figured out how to retire early or invest it wisely, but Masayoshi Son recognized the value of investing in himself. He returned to Japan and got to work setting up his own business. A year and a half later, SoftBank was born. But this new chapter in life required something more. It required something to prove that Masayoshi had grown from a bright-eyed kid living on the outskirts of life into a capable tech entrepreneur who was front and center of this emerging market. It required him to change his name. He removed the Japanese-enforced Yasumoto and reinstated his Korean surname to become Masayoshi Son. To Koreans, he's a role model. To tech giants, he's a revolutionary. To investors, he's a maverick. Yet it would take some time for SoftBank to become the namesake it is now. Originally, SoftBank had to figure out how to navigate the uncharted territory of the consumer computer landscape. Chapter 3: Survival of the Fittest. In Japan, software is simply called soft, so having a bank or reservoir of software made the name logical. However, there were aspirations to play a vital part in society's infrastructure from day one. But before it could become a real bank of computer tech, it had to start as a humble telecommunications company. Initially, it distributed PC software throughout Japan. You could think of it like an old-school version of Steam, where a middleman does the hard work of pairing up clients with their ideal software. In 1982, SoftBank started publishing monthly magazines. One targeted manufacturers, the other targeted engineers. It was a smart move to cut above the noise of consumer-focused publications. By standing out this way, SoftBank was gaining public attention as a voice worth listening to. Masayoshi Son was being compared to Bill Gates, but Masayoshi Son differed in a significant way by placing his focus not on how to create the best tech now, but predicting where the best tech could emerge. Masayoshi Son viewed technology as waves. If they rise and fall, so too do technology cycles. He didn't view progress as a straight line. Surviving market turbulence was key to innovation. SoftBank Holdings Inc. was set up in America during 1994 to help identify opportunities in internet-based companies. Bill Gates may have been nervous about investing heavily into Dotcom companies, but not the CEO of SoftBank. Such a move might be more commonplace nowadays, but this was still the decade where the internet's longevity was up for question. Someone thought it was still a fad, and the idea of dating someone online was about as normal as streaming yourself playing video games in a hot tub. By 1996, SoftBank had radically increased its number of internet investments. Masayoshi Son was betting everything that this new market was going to be the next big thing. For 3 days, Masayoshi Son was richer than Bill Gates, but then stocks dropped in value. At the time, it must have seemed unstoppable. But with hindsight, we all know that this growth happened alongside the expansion of the dot-com bubble. And when the bubble burst in 2000, it burst hard. Once viable internet startups and businesses went up in digital smoke. Some instantly, and some over months. And some held on for a few years before finally being taken out back and being put out of their misery. SoftBank went down too. Well, almost. Pretty much all of its investments turned into dust. Almost $70 billion of net worth. After 6 months, share price had dropped by 99%. Thankfully, SoftBank had an ace in the hole. Masayoshi Son had seen the potential in a little e-commerce company called Alibaba. Ever heard of it? Now it's the biggest competitor to Amazon and the go-to marketplace for every dropshipper studying day trading. But Masayoshi Son snapped it up when it was a struggling company in need of investment. Biographers would say this decision sums up his knack for recognizing and supporting future market leaders during the infancy of their niche. That seems a bit fanciful given that Masayoshi Son admits that Jack Ma, CEO of Alibaba, had no business plan, zero revenue, and only a couple dozen employees. So what made him invest $20 million? Jack Ma's eyes. Not because they were beautiful, but because they conveyed leadership. Perhaps Masayoshi Son recognized the energy of himself in Jack Ma. Perhaps his meeting reminded him of that fateful day with the head of McDonald's Japan. Either way, this investment paid off. When Alibaba went public, it was worth around $90 billion. This means Masayoshi saw a return of over 4,500%. This single investment not only saved SoftBank from going the way of Alta Vista in GeoCities, it has gone on to become a cornerstone of SoftBank's investment portfolio. This stability would be vital in the most important step of Masayoshi Son's ultimate vision. Yet, it was his belief in growth above all else that almost led to its ruin once and for all. Chapter 4. Planting Capital. The Vision Fund is the most ambitious move in the history of tech investing. The basic idea is to drive innovation by fending off competitors at all costs, costs being the key word. The plan is simple. Buy up the most promising startups and give them endless resources to bring to scale. Even if they make a loss, they'll be able to outlast rivals to become the go-to company for its product or service. To date, SoftBank has invested over $100 billion in its Vision Fund. That's the largest investment fund ever. It's enough to buy and ruin Twitter 2.5 times. The Vision Fund is a bold idea, yet going from conception to funding to investing only took a few years. Investments included Uber, DoorDash, and NVIDIA. It also has stakes in companies focusing on real estate technology, satellite broadband, hospitality services, and semiconductor manufacturing. That's a lot of fingers in a lot of pies. Heck, that's a lot of pie factories. If the Vision Fund pays off, then almost every tech you use, from computer parts to apps, will have come from something in the investment portfolio. So how on earth is Masayoshi Son bankrolling this Quest world-sized future? And yes, that is a bespoke reference to an underrated Cartoon Network show from the 90s. Some cash has come from tech giants like Apple and Masayoshi Son's old partner at Sharp Corporation. These companies have put up $5.5 billion. $15 billion came courtesy of Abu Dhabi Mabudala, aka a sovereign wealth fund from the United Arab Emirates. SoftBank also put in their own cash, $33.1 billion to be exact, but the bulk of the support came from one single source. According to legend, Masayoshi Son convinced the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to invest $45 billion in just 45 minutes. That's $1 billion for each minute in the meeting. All it took was promising the heir in waiting a return of $1 trillion. We can't know any more details because SoftBank has been tight-lipped on its investment strategy. We can only go into its public actions. That's why a few scandals suggest its rapid growth is unsustainable. For starters, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia came under scrutiny when it was revealed that he ordered a journalist be assassinated inside an embassy. With such a flagrant disregard of international law and, morals, it's understandable why additional partners are getting second thoughts of working with a cutthroat businessman. Then there are the companies and industries that failed. Zoom was a 2015 venture to revolutionize food manufacturing and technology by inventing pizza-making robots. Their tech would have been the next big thing since sliced bread, especially with SoftBank being able to pull resources and expertise from Boston Dynamics. However, it turns out getting robots to make pizzas inside moving delivery vans isn't practical. Customers complained so much that they shelved the idea to focus on artificial intelligence for food service. When their automated food trucks failed to impress, they pivoted once more, this time to compostable food packaging. It might be a neat idea, but these moves away from its innovative origins meant that the company had lost its purpose. The end result was a bunch of failed experiments, a loss of direction, and a whole bunch of wasted money. The plug was pulled on Zoom in 2023. But hey, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, right? And you can't make a pizza without firing a few robots. Not everything in the portfolio will become the next Alibaba. However, the real issue is when a bad investment grows so much that it creates its own bubble. Even Masayoshi Son knows this. That's why he publicly apologized for investing in WeWork. Chapter 5. Growing Pains. The office space rental company was founded in 2010 by Adam Neumann. If you've seen HBO's Silicon Valley, then you'll be familiar with the clown CEO trope. To sum up Adam Neumann, he's the kind of guy who invests in pitches from strangers he meets while surfing. But that's not because he has some trick for detecting a good idea. He just never uses his own money. For example, he owned 4 of the original buildings leased to WeWork. That way, if the company went bust, he still got paid. The guy even personally trademarked the We brand, which he sold to his own company for $5.9 million. So why didn't Masayoshi Son hear the alarm bells? Because his weakness for a charismatic personality got the better of him. He fell for Adam Neumann's Willy Wonka bullshit hook, line, and sinker. After the initial WeWork pitch, he told Neumann, "That's great, but let's make it even bigger." In 2017, the Vision Fund coughed up $6.5 billion for the hot desk startup. Instantly, WeWork had become the most sought-after enterprise. In 2019, Masayoshi Son was so confident in the project that SoftBank chucked up an extra $9.5 billion. People were so desperate to be a part of the WeWork story that its value shot up to a staggering $47 billion. Yet, skeptics couldn't make sense of the numbers. WeWork was outpaced by its closest competitor, IWG, on every metric. Floor space, membership, cost, heck. IWG even made a profit. WeWork only made a loss. In the first 6 months of 2019, WeWork lost $690 million. Money was being blown on unchallenged growth into new territories, flashy branding, ridiculous luxuries like private jets, and even off-the-wall experiments like the company's own in-house kindergarten called WeGrow. It was growing in all directions as fast as possible. Analysts were left scratching their heads. How on earth was its valuation justified if it was too big to make money? Was it possible SoftBank knew something they didn't? No. Far from it. No one knew what was going on. Around this time, Masayoshi Son actually bragged about wishing he could invest more into the company. Unfortunately for him, the other board members of SoftBank stopped Masayoshi Son from writing blank checks. That was the closest anyone got to restricting the amount of money being funneled into the company. But reality came tumbling down when WeWork prepared to go public. As soon as their financial books were open to the public, it became clear that Masayoshi Son had made a terrible mistake. He immediately ordered WeWork to pull back its IPO. But it was too late. The company couldn't afford to pay the hundreds of employees it was about to fire. Rank-and-file workers left the office with a cardboard box of all their items, but no severance package. However, the same couldn't be said for the higher-ups. Adam Neumann got a severance package of $1.7 billion. No wonder he voted for himself to be removed as the CEO during an emergency board meeting. Maybe they found that cash behind the back of the couch. WeWork cut back on costs, like the private jet, and made it known that their biggest liability had been kicked out of the company. But it was too late. The reputation was trashed, the value had plummeted, and the funding was drying up. Then the COVID pandemic hit, which took out what remained of the office space rental business plan. By the time Masayoshi Son publicly came out to explain what the hell had gone wrong, it'd become clear that his pet project had wasted billions upon billions of dollars. WeWork had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy at the end of 2023. Masayoshi Son has done what he can to brush the scandal under the rug, but his reputation could be ruined forever. Before, he was the guy who could spot potential industries and survive market crashes. Now, people see him as a gambler, hedging his bets with other people's money. Then again, this isn't the first time he came close to losing it all, so maybe his strategy for growth still has potential. No one knows which other companies in the Vision Fund could be the next WeWork, though some are confident he's learned from his lesson enough. Let's hope so, because if he doesn't pay back that Saudi prince, then Masayoshi Son could be getting an early severance. But what do you think? Is Masayoshi Son too big to fail, or is rapid growth a recipe for bankruptcy? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video, be sure to check out our video on the 10 years that Japanese billionaires ruled the world. And also be sure to like and subscribe to keep on learning how history works.